Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole. I am Director of Delivery Management and Operations over at SaltClick. I am also a community group leader for Slack, King of Prussia, PA. Shout out to my PA folks. I am here with Alex Conlan. So excited to have you. That's enough about me. You're the star of the show. Alex, would you please introduce yourself and tell us what you get to do every day?
The star of the show. I love to hear that. Well, if you say so. Alex Conlan here. So nice to be with you all today. I am a customer success manager on the Slack team here at Salesforce. I've been with the company for about 4.5 years now. My role as a success manager for my customers is just making sure that my customers are receiving the maximum value out of Slack to accomplish their company goals, their team goals, even their personal goals at their companies. A little bit about my career here. I was our first hire on our Latin America team with Slack CS, then moved over to technology, media, and telecommunications. I'm also our global communications lead for Outforce, our LGBT ERG. We have 12,000 members worldwide, and I help deliver our Slack first communication strategy. So good to be with you all today.
That is awesome. And the ERG, can you just remind me what that stands for?
Employee Resource Group.
Very cool. See, I told you were a star. You were down again. I knew it. Okay, so Slack is coming out strong for being the home base, your work operating system. We heard that a lot at Dreamforce. I, for one, am very biased when it comes to Slack, so I'm very excited. But, I'm hearing conversations around, well, what does that really mean, right? So I'm sure you are on the ground floor. You've got a ton of experience and exposure to those customer convos. What do you feel like right now is really separating out customers or companies that you feel like are really running their business on Slack?
Yeah, for me, it's really when customers adopt the mentality that work happens where conversations happen. So when customers think of Slack not only as a chat tool, but actually as the central nervous system of their business, it's where the information's flowing, the decisions are being made, and work is getting done. That's where it really unlocks the true intention of Slack, where everything can flow through the tool. So including approvals, project updates, alerts, any notifications that ultimately affect decision making is really key for Slack usage. But it's also where leaders are engaged, where they are emulating the behavior that they'd like to see for their teams, and also automating their workflows, and just incorporating their business critical processes into Slack rather than across tools.
Yeah, and I think that leadership piece that you hit on is really huge, right? If you don't have that buy-in or those people at the top saying, yeah, let's do this, now's the time, I think it could be pretty challenging. But I know that you love aha moments. I love a good light bulb moment. Where do you see those biggest aha moments for new Slack customers?
I'd say oftentimes I see it even in regards to the perception of channels. So to me, it's like where the magic happens is when channels aren't just a chat room where folks can kind of talk about things, but it's actually project workspaces where work is actually getting done. And so what I mean by that is, a project channel is actually the single source of truth for everything related to that project. Someone can join a project team and look at that project channel and be immediately up to speed on the context and full history of where the project is and how it's evolved. And so instead of being on numerous email threads and being taken on and off of them, the classic question of, did you see my email? That all kind of goes away because everything is visible in one place and also searchable as well when you're maintaining that knowledge in Slack.
Yeah, that's huge, working out loud, right? And I project manage some of our enterprise level engagements, and we love a good project channel. And to your point, it really sets you up for the AI summaries, even just bopping in there, working at that higher level. Again, talking about leadership and getting buy-in. How great would it be when you can just do a summary on a channel and know what's going on, where your risks are? That stuff is very powerful. So I love that you brought that up. Okay, so things are great when they're going great, right? But sometimes we hit the speed bumps or the roadblocks. So from your experience, what do you feel like are the most common roadblocks, and how are people overcoming those?
Sure. I mean, Slack is ultimately where work is happening. So it's where life is happening and decisions are happening. So it's really a question of change management. Like, how do you fundamentally change the way in which you're working and approaching work? And sometimes old habits die hard, right? Especially when it comes to email. Many of us have been working with email for the majority of our careers, or a large chunk of our careers. And so that's oftentimes like the default for communication, as opposed to Slack. Sometimes even with that, channels and the concept of channels can be a little bit overwhelming. So maybe there's too many channels. The sidebar becomes a little bit unwieldy, or there's just unclear reasoning or purposes for an actual channel. And then finally, even I would say just with leadership, sometimes when like a top-down approach isn't there, and executives aren't actually modeling that behavior, then everyone else is not really sure how to behave either with an email, Slack, or otherwise. So some ways of navigating that I've seen successful is just first off, start small, and just be intentional about how you want to use Slack. Maybe think about 2 to 3 use cases that are key for your team or your business, and grow from there. There's a client that we have worked with, a financial services client in the top, Fortune 500, that had an email addiction, like many customers do. So they didn't really know where to start. So they just created 3 channels, just around quick questions about insights and announcements. And then within 2 months, they saw that their email volume dropped by 40%, their response rates and times improved by 60%, just by starting small with these little channels. So, small start could have a big impact. I'd also be intentional about the ways in which you're naming channels, and kind of establish a nomenclature or some conventions on how you're naming channels and the purpose of those channels, so that people know where to go. And when they see a channel, they know what it's all about. And then with executive sponsorship, as I mentioned, that emulation of behavior is really key. And so just making sure that leaders are active participants, as well as cheerleaders of Slack, so that folks know to rally around it and use it as a tool where everyone can work together.
That was a ton of awesome insight. So I really appreciate that. And I think you really spoke to maybe that maturity arc that folks can start to basically flourish on, right? So, and again, it comes back to that leadership buy-in and really developing that culture. So how have you found maybe the easiest route, or one of the routes, right, to help leaders really start to accelerate that change or create that culture within their companies to have themselves be Slack first?
Absolutely. Leaders really set the tone in Slack, oftentimes, where when they're engaged authentically, when they're using it, regularly participating, it demonstrates to the rest of the team that this is a tool that really matters to how information is disseminated and stored. And so I would say, a couple of solutions or ideas for leaders is, sharing context, not just decisions, so that, folks understand why decisions are being made, so that could be, searchable and understood within Slack. Also celebrate wins in channel. Oftentimes, teams will have wins and then it's just on to the next quarter or the next win, without actually pausing and recognizing folks. Slack is a great way to do that, where you could make recognition visible to the whole team, and also bespoke, teams within an organization, so that visibility and that celebration of teammates is really key. I'd also say threading is really important, where, oftentimes in channels, we'll see a lot of folks just sending individual messages, perhaps about a consistent topic, where threads will be really key, where it kind of clears out the noise a little bit and cleans up a channel, so that, within a thread, nested in that is all of the conversations, decisions, and information that teams need about that specific topic. And so leaders can be really key there. And then just finally, just using Slack not as we are saying, not only as a chat tool, but sharing information, sharing insights, sharing articles, so that there's continuous learning in Slack, and it becomes a repository for that information, so that it could be surfaced using search, going forward, for new hires and folks who have been around a while, all the same.
Yeah, I love threading, right? So I think it's a hot topic in the community as well. But I think, to your point, it serves a purpose, right? It's good hygiene. It's just best practice, but it's also going to help you on that maturity arc. It's going to help you with the AI search functionality and all kinds of other good stuff, because you're really keeping that conversation condensed. But I love people and culture, so I don't want to pass over that wins and celebration message that you're sharing as well, because I think that's huge, and really helping people understand the why. It's not just about the system or getting the next thing done. It really is about sharing with each other, right? And building that community or that culture of that company. We've got a praise channel. I know folks have win and celebration channel, like you mentioned. So I think that's a very, very powerful messaging, right? It's about people too. It's not just the system. We're getting a ton of great insight, Alex. This is fantastic. Okay, so we've talked about features, functionality, all kinds of good stuff. What about integrations? Have you dealt a lot with those in your past life, and how do you see them really helping the platform evolve?
Absolutely. I think integrations are key in Slack. Oftentimes customers will have so many tools in their tech stack, and we call it swivel chairing, just amongst the different tools, where you're leaving one system to go into another one. You're in there, and then you have to swivel chair out of the one you're in to go into the next one, and it just goes on and on and on. Whereas Slack really could integrate all of those tools that customers have into one space, using our integrations, so that customers or users don't really need to swivel chair anymore. They could find all of that information in Slack. They could unlock all of the capabilities of their tools, their third-party tools, into one place, which is Slack. And so, really, you don't have to ever leave Slack at all to execute on various projects. So, of course, being a part of the Salesforce family, we have a ton of Salesforce integrations. So bringing customer data into your conversations and leveraging that to make decisions. But we have thousands more. I would direct everyone to our app directory, where you can find all of our thousands of integrations. Some notable ones for me: if you're using Google Drive or even O365, you can integrate the file collaboration into Slack, so sharing Google Drive, files and slides, for example. You could also integrate your calendar on both suites and many others, so that you can just see your calendar right within Slack without having to go into the other tools to navigate your workday. It's all kind of right there. So you can actually not only get the context of a meeting, but even go ahead and schedule or edit meetings as well. And then finally, there's many different team-specific use cases or line of business use cases for integrations. But if you're managing tickets, Jira could be an integration where you're using the functionality of that tool, but within your Slack environment. Same with things like Asana or others. It's really just managing the projects within one place. Certainly, the sky is almost the limit with our apps, so not endorsing specific ones, but would encourage everyone to kind of check out the tools that we have available and sort of integrating them into Slack, so that you kind of reduce that swivel chair out of our tool.
I love that. And I just right off the bat, just delivery management and operations, I think about GitHub. I'm seeing that integrated more, Gear Set, PagerDuty. So folks, I think, are really gravitating toward what can I connect with so that I don't have to leave, right? To your point, I don't have to swivel as much. Maybe I can reduce some tabs. And I love the call out for the marketplace, because you guys are just adding constantly to those list of apps. So every time I turn around, I feel like there's another thing that I don't have to leave. Everything's right there in Slack for me. I think we're talking a lot about what you can do, what you don't have to do anymore, right? I think for leadership to get their buy-in, sometimes we have to deal with the data and the metrics. So how have you found it to be impactful measuring that success for Slack? What are some of your go-to methods there?
Sure. Sometimes customers will get stuck on monthly active users and just the adoption of Slack, which is extremely important, and that sort of demonstrates the value of the investment, and usage of the tool. But there's so much more beyond that, and I think when we want to understand the value of Slack, it could really be a holistic view of how folks are saving time, saving money, just gaining efficiency using the automation that's available in Slack and just the other great pieces of functionality. So thinking about things like time to resolution, is Slack moving the needle on how fast teams are actually solving problems? Or even similarly, the velocity of those decisions, how quickly are the decisions being made, but also communicated to the rest of the group so that it makes folks a little bit more nimble. We also can think about cross-team collaboration. So are we breaking down the silos? Are we expanding to other teams that are required for cross-functional collaboration? Slack can be an easy way of showing how those teams are being integrated more. And then I mentioned, with channels, that when a new hire or a new member of a team joins the channel, they could get up to speed rather quickly. But that could be applied across Slack. So it's onboarding new members of a team, new members of a project, whatever it is. How quickly can those team members get up to speed? And how fast? And then we think about our calendars and how we get bogged down in back-to-backs, and really there's just a wall of meetings sometimes. But Slack could be a great way of reducing that, where you could actually, instead of saying, oh, this meeting could have been an email, it actually could have been a Slack. And you could have async communication, not only for teams who are working normal hours, but across time zones, where you can record clips, you could schedule send messages so that messages are received at times that are more convenient for folks. And so using Slack functionality, you can whittle away at those busy calendars to make them a bit more async and save time for everyone. And then all of that is kind of wrapped up in employee satisfaction. How are folks feeling, generally about the connection that they're gaining from Slack, and also feeling more informed and, every step of the way with the company, every step of the way as decisions and events are unfolding. You can kind of have surveys or other tools to understand and gauge that feeling of connectedness using Slack.
Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of bring it all together, right? So it's the working out loud. It's still developing that culture. But I definitely want to hit on something you said too, right? Because I'm thinking about, we have a meeting, we're talking through it, right? We get hopefully through our agenda, and then we've got to figure out our next steps and our action items. And there's always this delay, right? There's a delay around either getting the comms out, sending the communication, or doing the next thing. And I think you speak really well to, okay, well, we're going to do that in Slack. So maybe we'll huddle in Slack, or we'll ditch the meeting and we'll just async discuss that in Slack. And then everyone's already aware. You don't have to worry about getting that update email out. It's right there. And then everybody knows their action items, so they can just go. And I think sometimes that's hard to measure, right? That increased velocity. I'm sure there's fun ways to do that, but I didn't want to lose sight of that because it's really powerful.
And I will say that not only is it a summary post, after Slack, which is important, and you could use AI with huddles to summarize your meetings, but then you could integrate other tools that Slack has. So things like lists, for example. If you have action items that come out of a meeting, you can record all that automatically or manually into lists, and then track the progression of those action items using that list. And then the same philosophy can be applied to canvases, where instead of having a post for after each meeting summarizing the key decisions as well as actions, you could use Canvas to kind of be the literal same page that everyone is on, and source of truth of those actions and next steps, so that can be disseminated and shared amongst teams easily as well. So at Slack, we like to kind of create many different options, oftentimes do the same thing or accomplish the same goal. And so we have a slew of project management tools and meeting management tools that can help you drive those decisions forward.
Yeah, I love that. I love a good list. And it's a lot about moving things forward, right, and creating the velocity. We have to talk about governance. And I know folks can sometimes think, oh, that's going to slow me down, right? Governance is about creating hurdles and slowing us down. So how do you really kind of talk through and build out strong governance without that reduced velocity?
Yeah, well, it's a fine balance where, you have to give teams guardrails, but not roadblocks. So it's just focusing on better communication rather than actually controlling it. And so I always suggest creating guidelines, but not always rules. I mean, certainly rules are important from a legal perspective, but guidelines are also very key, where you're kind of giving flexibility and providing frameworks so that folks can work nimbly and kind of flexibly, rather than constrained to specific rules. I also mentioned earlier about the conventions, the naming conventions for channels. To me, that's just a great way of making it consistent of how channels are organized so that they're clear but not overly restrictive. And then also considering the channels, regularly cleaning up channels, so archiving unused channels. There's ways of automatically doing that depending on last used or frequency of usage, but just trying not to let them accumulate, just because then it makes it rather difficult to sift through channels as users are searching through them. But then, of course, we would be remiss without saying that retention policies are key, security policies are key, and then certainly from a legal perspective, rules are key, to make sure that we're not only legally compliant, but also transparent, as well as looking for ways of automating governance. So retention policies is one way to accomplish that. But overall, we provide a lot of training to Slack admins in our webinar series, as well as async materials. But either way that you get there, the ultimate goal is just empowering admins to distribute decision making and not controlling the way in which folks are collaborating in Slack, just to give everyone flexibility.
And the flexibility is key, right? Because you really spoke to all of these components that can help you build out your governance, with an asterisk symbol that you can adjust that to meet your needs, right? So you can definitely archive, but if you have to wait a little bit, Slack can work through that with you. And I know you talked a little bit about lists and Canvas and automation, but I'm sure you've got a wealth of knowledge that you can impart to us. So do you want to talk a little bit about some automation that can help us get through our day a little bit easier?
Yeah, definitely. Slack lists, as I mentioned, is really like our project tracking tool and task management. It could even be like a resource library. Canvas can be similar in the sense where you're housing a lot of key decisions, agendas, guidelines, and resources, etc. But to me, automation is really one of the ways in which Slack is working for you, not with you sometimes, where it's just automating mundane or repeatable processes using Slack functionality. So our workflow builder is a great way of integrating processes into Slack. And so you could also integrate the various tools that you have using our marketplace. But some great use cases to me that I've found for workflow builder and automation in general is new hire onboarding. So automating the ways in which new hires are receiving information, and if they need to sign or review benefits or contracts or whatever it is, that they're getting that in an organized way, and that could be scalable and automated using Workflow Builder. Similarly with approval processes, whether it's with contracts or with decisions, generally, you can automate ways in which approvals happen within Slack, making it, kind of buttons rather than actual text, messages that need to be sent to speed up those processes and also kind of give consistency to them. And then I also think, any alerts or reminders are always key. So if it's kind of within your tech stack, certainly with Salesforce, we have, as I mentioned, many integrations with our Salesforce clouds and products. So if there's any changes to customer data, for example, you can get those notifications automatically within Slack. The same philosophy is very similar for the other applications that we have, of kind of having notifications from external tools and incorporating them into Slack automatically, so that you get reminders, where you're actually working. And I will say that, when we talk about Slack lists and canvases and automation, they often just go hand in hand with how customers are working to kind of drive their outcomes. We've seen, many customers using all three, where, for example, if you have a launch plan within a canvas, so this has like the timelines of a project, the stakeholders and the key decisions, then you can have that list track all the tasks associated with that launch plan across the teams. And then you use the automated workflows to actually ping channel members when those milestones are hit. So you're really incorporating all of these fantastic functionality within Slack to basically just manage these products automatically for teams and in a scalable and consistent ways.
I love that. And you're really talking to like the building blocks, right? So we have all of these pieces that Slack has delivered to us. And I think about, again, that maturity model or that arc, right? So lists and Canvas, we've got governance, we've got, how we're building things out, we're training our admins. I think it's one of those many things that's stepping us toward whatever that next evolution is going to be, right? And then I think about layering in agents, Agentforce, right? Or, maybe your own custom LLM that you've been building out. But we're maturing on that arc, right? So what do you think the role is of AI and automation when we think about that next phase of Slack?
Yeah, I mean, AI, the advancements that have been broadly in AI have been incredible, but here at Slack, our philosophy has generally been that it's kind of the intelligence layer of where teams are working, so that it's kind of an assistant, or it's making actions for you or helping guide decisions by suggesting who to involve, when to schedule certain events or meetings, any information that's missing, how to optimize processes generally. It kind of helps fill in the gaps and helps advise and guide teams to move forward. And so we've had so much innovation in the AI space that's integrated into Slack and how folks are working. And many of the announcements have been made at Dreamforce a few months ago. But some notables for me are Slackbot. This is where it's your always-on AI-powered companion. It's delivering support that's actually personalized to you, so that it's incorporating the conversations and information that you feed it, but also that you have within Slack, so that it could not only answer questions, but even take action if you'd like. And then it improves and kind of gets smarter with every interaction to understand your needs and how you typically handle problems. And also, I think enterprise search has been fantastic. This is the AI-powered search experience that really extends across your organization's apps and data. So it helps you find exactly what you're looking for when you need it. And so it's just bringing in all of the information from other tools right within Slack.
I don't know about you, Alex, but I think I've been really waiting for Slackbot, right? So I'm ready to just log into my laptop, open up Slack, and then have my Slackbot greet me, give me my plan for the day, tell me where my risks and issues are, right? And if I'm ready, just go do that next thing. So that was something I was also really excited about.
Yeah, it's so helpful and just really changed the game for how we work.
Heck yes. Okay, got time for one more. So I love really thinking, forward thinking, planning. What are we looking at for 2026? So what advice would you give for companies that are really preparing to relaunch Slack, launch for the first time? What should they be thinking about or doing?
Yeah, well, as we're kind of saying in this conversation, that Slack is just transforming how organizations are communicating, how it's collaborating, how it's making decisions. So, I would suggest starting with your strategy. So defining actually what success looks like with Slack and without it. What are your business outcomes that you're trying to drive next year and going forward? Thinking about pilot teams or projects that you want to take on that incorporate Slack, and kind of, again, starting small and gradually moving up. And then focusing on the workflows and the actual lines of business rather than features. So instead of thinking about how do we integrate lists into our process, it's more how do we manage tickets automatically and then add in lists and workflow builder and all these great things, so that it provides a more holistic approach to the actual process you're trying to improve. And then always consider the change management elements. You're ultimately creating a cultural shift in how folks are working and how they're using their time. So make sure that you're providing communications and training, and just being mindful of the different groups that you're affecting with these changes, so that everything is done with purpose, and it really makes sure that everyone's comfortable and along for the ride.
Awesome. Alex, appreciate you hanging out today and talking Slack. We're right at time, so I appreciate everyone for joining. Thank you so much, and this will be available as a recording. We'll talk soon.
Awesome.
Alex, thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, everyone.